is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
African cases pass 1,500 as governments continue to roll out robust measures to halt the spread. Kenya faces a potential food crisis as locust swarms continue to destroy crops. And how the coronavirus is driving up ginger and garlic prices in Ethiopia. Hello everyone, welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. The details on those stories in just a moment, but first, here's Rama Nyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
That's right, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. MTN in South Africa has cut data costs to help people cope with working from home. And speaking of working remotely, we'll take a look at a firm in Egypt which says its productivity has gone up as individuals are working from home. We'll have the latest on those stories and plenty more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we begin with the latest COVID-19 figures on the continent. Over 1,000 COVID-19 cases have been reported in 43 African countries so far. That's according to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Let's now take a look at the numbers by region. Northern Africa has the highest number of confirmed cases. Cases in Egypt have jumped to 327 from 294. Algeria now has 201 cases of the coronavirus. Tunisia registered new cases, raising the total to 89. In Western Africa, Burkina Faso, with 99 cases, has the highest number of cases in the region. Togo's cases, on the other hand, have risen to 18. Nigeria has 36 confirmed, up from 30. In Eastern Africa, Kenya now has 16 people with COVID-19. Madagascar has also seen its cases rise from 3 to 12. In Central Africa, Cameroon has the highest number in the Great Lakes region with 56 people infected. The Democratic Republic of Congo also saw a rise in cases with 30 now confirmed. In Southern Africa, South Africa remains the worst affected on the continent with 402 cases. Well, for a more in-depth look on cases across Africa, here are our correspondents in Lagos, Johannesburg and Cairo. Let's start with Deji Badmus, who brings us the details on the country's first reported death.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, says the victim was a 67-year-old male who returned home following medical treatment in the United Kingdom. The agency says he had underlying medical conditions like multiple myeloma and diabetes and was actually undergoing chemotherapy. The family of the victim has since confirmed the death and given the name of the individual. Meanwhile, the number of confirmed cases in the country has now risen to 36. Of that number, 33 are categorized as active cases, 2 have been treated and discharged, and then 1 death has been recorded. Health authorities also say 32 of the active cases are clinically stable, while 1 is now dependent on oxygen. A further breakdown indicates 26 of all the confirmed cases had travel histories to highly affected countries. 6 had contact with the travel cases, while 4 contracted the disease from unconfirmed sources. And that is where the worry is for health officials here, because that may suggest community transmission. In all, 5 states and the country's capital, Abuja, have now reported cases, with Lagos, the country's commercial capital, having the highest number of cases at 24. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
That case count jumped by 128 people since the last announcement on Sunday evening. The Department of Health has now started breaking down those figures so that citizens can get a sense of what's happening around them. Gauteng province, the country's economic powerhouse, has the most positive reported cases at 207. That's 52% of the cases thus far, followed by the Western Cape with 100, representing around 25%. Then there's KZN, or KwaZulu-Natal, with 60 cases. On Sunday, there were 3 provinces without any reported positive cases. That changed on Monday, although the numbers remain low. The age profile of those infected is also fairly widely spread, starting from 9 youngsters aged between 0 and 10, and then 121 people between 21 and 40. There's a large proportion of cases where age wasn't specified. 2 people have recovered according to authorities, and fortunately there have been no deaths related to the virus yet. On Monday, as President Cyril Ramaphosa briefed the country, there were reports of the country's military being mobilized. That's under the recently promulgated regulations, which is linked to the state of disaster, where the SANDF will be called upon to help the police. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
The Egyptian Health Ministry has announced 33 new COVID-19 cases on Sunday night. It's the latest official statement about the viral outbreak. With it, the number of infections in Egypt stand at 327, with 56 fully recovered, and the death toll has increased to 14. The Egyptian armed forces, the police and governmental bodies are leading mass sterilization efforts across the country. Universities, government buildings have been disinfected. Videos released by the military spokesperson show soldiers spraying prime streets in Egyptian capital, including Tahrir Square, as well as underground stations. It's part of the nation's preventive measures to reduce the possibility of viral infection through the operating facilities in the country. Meanwhile, state-owned online newspapers have confirmed the death of 2 high-ranking military generals from the virus. They indicated they got infected when they participated in the army's operation to combat the virus. No further details about how or when they got infected was released. No statement has been posted on the Ministry of Defense official online pages. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has urged Egyptians to abide to social distancing. He addressed Egyptians about the virus for the first time since Egypt has shut down universities and commercial stores. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And we'll stay with Adel Mahroui for the moment. And in Egypt, as the government there steps up efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19, members of the public are also helping. Groups of young Egyptian activists are assisting by spreading awareness about the virus. They also distribute face masks and gloves as they sensitize people on the need for high hygiene standards. Adel Mahroui reports from Cairo.
Egypt is a country of over 100 million citizens who are squeezed together, with almost all living on just 5% of the land. That's the perfect environment for COVID-19 to spread. As the country with the highest number of infections in Africa, Egypt needs all the help it can get. To assist the authorities, a group of young Egyptians launched a street-based awareness campaign about the virus.
I don't know if Egypt can overcome this virus or not. That's why I've started this campaign, so at least we can do our part.
They visit popular districts and talk to people about COVID-19. They distribute face masks, gloves and disinfectants, and highlight the importance to frequently use these preventive measures. From the homeless to the elderly and even taxi drivers, the team tries to reach those who are most vulnerable to the infection.
These kids are doing a good job. This is a good deed at an important time. We all want the people of Egypt to be safe. I pray to God that these days pass peacefully.
With prices of the items they distribute skyrocketing and most of them being always out of stock, the We Are Capable campaign is struggling to continue their work to help society. But they insist on playing their part.
Egyptians need sufficient awareness, and that needs to be repeated over and over, because we meet a lot of people who are not taking any measures. They think they are stronger than corona. They must take this issue more seriously because they pose a danger to all of us.
COVID-19 is spreading fear across the world, but the virus is also showing the best characters in every nation. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The Zimbabwean government has said that it respects South Africa's right to erect a security fence along their joint border. The measures, which South Africa says should not be viewed as xenophobic, come as countries in the region step up measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19. CGTN's Faraimwa Kutuya tells us more.
A Zimbabwe government spokesperson says South Africa has the sovereign right to decide what form of demarcation it uses to mark its territory. Secretary for Information Nick Mangwana told the media that the same freedom of choice that people have to build walls or erect fences around their homes, fields or properties applies to international law. Meanwhile, the country's Home Affairs Minister says he believes the increased security measure is to improve the effectiveness of screening for the coronavirus. Over the years, thousands of Zimbabweans have crossed illegally into South Africa in search of greener pastures. On its part, Zimbabwe is scaling up security, including shutting down undesignated border crossings, which are used by undocumented travelers in a bid to try and halt the spread of the pandemic.
Most of them are ungazetted crossing points, which we are making sure, because there's no infrastructure at those places. But the major borders, like your Bight Bridge, your Plum Tree, your Victoria Falls, cannot be closed. Either on our side or on the side of our neighboring country, cannot be closed. Even in South Africa, there's not closed all the major borders. They've closed the small and designated borders where criminals cross.
Though both countries have maintained that the Bight Bridge border post, the main gateway for imports into Zimbabwe, will remain fully operational, there is some anxiety here that there might be new restrictions introduced, especially if the number of new infections increases. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Well, let's get you the latest numbers on the coronavirus pandemic. 350,000 people have been infected in over 180 countries and regions. Italy has the most deaths, reporting almost 5,500. Nearly 60,000 have been infected. Spain is the second hardest hit country in Europe, with more than 33,000 infections. Germany has over 26,000 cases. The United States reports over 35,000 cases. President Donald Trump has approved requests from the states of New York and Washington to declare disasters. Iran has reported more than 1,800 deaths, and the death toll in South Korea has passed 100, with more than 8,900 cases. Hubei province reports no new cases, confirmed or suspected. Nearly 90% of patients in China have now recovered. Well, Chinese authorities have issued a new set of guidelines for the country as the COVID-19 dynamic continues to change in China. It comes after a high-level meeting chaired by Premier Li Keqiang. It's concluded that although China's situation had improved considerably, there were still risks in terms of isolated cases and regional outbreaks in the country. As the situation escalated overseas, the meeting said it was important to minimize the impact of infected people coming into the country to ensure a second wave does not flood the country. It asked local authorities to be open and transparent with information about the pandemic. The officials also called on China to lend more assistance to the international effort. China's immigration authority says foreigners will be denied entry if they fail to meet border control requirements, do not truthfully fill in information and answer inspectors' questions, and do not follow legal procedures. The Civil Aviation Administration says all Beijing-bound international passenger flights will be diverted to 12 designated airports in other cities. These include Shanghai, Shijiazhuang, and Tianjin. Passengers cleared from infection will then fly to Beijing. Shanghai is now using nucleic acid testing on all passengers coming from overseas. China reported 39 imported cases on Sunday and 15 today. In Germany, the streets of Berlin, Frankfurt and many other cities are virtually empty as authorities intensify measures to curb the coronavirus. The federal government has imposed a ban on public gatherings of more than 2 people. Meanwhile, the Munich-based IFO Institute says the outbreak could cost Germany hundreds of billions of euros in production losses. The government has agreed a package worth more than $800 billion to mitigate the damage caused. And now to Syria, where the war-torn country has reported its first case of the novel coronavirus. The government says the 20-year-old woman will be quarantined for 14 days. Authorities have been stepping up prevention efforts over the past week. They ordered the closure of schools, universities, restaurants, cinemas and event halls, and suspended prayer gatherings. Experts say the country is very vulnerable to the disease in the midst of a lengthy civil war which has crippled medical and social services. You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. We'll take a look at the implications of the coronavirus in Africa and how the continent is dealing with it. As we continue our coverage on the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa and beyond, CGTN has prepared a series of features that explore its implications on the African continent and how countries are trying to curb the spread of the pandemic. CGTN's Lindy Mtongana now joins us with our first installment.
Welcome to CGTN Africa's special series, Africa Battles COVID-19. Since it first emerged in December last year, the virus, now officially known as COVID-19, continues to spread across the globe. Though its emergence was slow in Africa, today the continent's health systems are being put to the test as COVID cases continue to shoot up. CGTN Africa takes you on a journey to understand COVID-19 and its impact on Africa. COVID-19 has caused panic. We take a look at how this outbreak evolved into a global pandemic in just a short space of time.
Coronaviruses are a family of viruses that cause infections in animals and birds, but they can be transferred to humans, and their effects can be mild conditions like common colds. But there are cases where these viruses cause severe respiratory illnesses that can be deadly or cause long-term effects on humans. They include the current strain of coronavirus called COVID-19, which has put the whole world on edge. The current COVID-19 outbreak was first reported in the Chinese city of Wuhan in late December 2019. Just 1 month later, the city of over 10 million people was on lockdown. But what jolted the world was the emergence of infection clusters outside China. A surge of cases in Lombardy, one of Italy's most economically productive regions, signaled the arrival of the virus in Europe. The World Health Organization issued multiple warnings on the threat of COVID-19.
We're deeply concerned about the increasing number of countries reporting cases, especially those with weaker health systems. However, this epidemic is a threat for every country, rich and poor. Even the high-income countries should expect surprises.
But for many African nations, their capacity to handle the coronavirus has yet to be fully tested.
We have guidance that we have shared with member states, and most member states are following this guidance, and therefore preparedness is increasing, not as fast as we would want, but preparedness is increasing in Africa.
On February 14th, North Africa became the first African region to confirm a coronavirus case. In a matter of weeks, over half the continent's 54 countries reported index cases.
It will have huge impacts on travel. It will have a negative impact also on our economy, which, as we all know, is in a very, very precarious situation. We will continue to ensure that we handle this matter with the necessary care and capability that it requires.
I urge Nigerians not to panic, but to allow experts in the public health space to guide the response in a calculated, scientific manner.
We all know that if drastic preventive and control measures are not taken urgently, the economic, social and even security consequences of the epidemic could be felt on a very large scale, and our dear continent Africa is particularly at risk given its relative fragile health system.
The increasing number of infections and deaths globally has seen the World Health Organization declare the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic. The announcement was made on March 11, 2020, less than 3 months after Wuhan identified its initial cases.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Many countries are still waiting to confront their first cases, and as global infection rates continue to climb, governments around the world are emulating China's sweeping measures to contain the coronavirus. Wilkisa Nyabo, CGTN.
In wake of COVID-19 in Africa, cities like Nairobi have taken the initiative of educating the masses on the coronavirus, its effects, and details how their governments have set up preparedness mechanisms to ensure safety and protection of the population. And in this particular public forum, the safety measures were key.
Thank you very much. So we are here today because of the interest that COVID-19 has generated.
In attendance were members of the public and experts drawn from different backgrounds, including infectious diseases and immunology.
So there's aggressive measures in containing this virus, while at the same time trying to pop up economy so that they do not go into a recession. So, Kenya, we've seen what's happening out there. What should be our response as a country?
My questions are with regard to stigma and the Chinese community in particular. Are there any efforts to maybe coping strategies and finding out how the Chinese community is handling the whole issue?
We need to understand that it's important for us to let people have, to respect people's spaces, to respect them, but also for us to know that if we have a problem, we can be able to go and we have the confidence to present ourselves by removing that stigma. But of course, a lot of information, education, sensitization is important to help waylay this kind of stigma, because it's lack of proper information that sometimes also creates the stigma.
But as new COVID-19 cases continue to emerge, concerns are growing about the continent's ability to handle the disease.
So you find people have rumors, are spreading rumors about the disease. People are coming up with memes about the disease. And of course, some of them are based on false information. So those kind of information have the potential of creating barriers towards seeking proper health care, because then without the proper information, you don't know what to do. You may end up doing the wrong thing, which may perpetuate the spread of the disease.
For sure, government will have no extra arm to stretch. Already the government will be stretched in terms of the healthcare systems. Here it's a situation whereby we already have other diseases. We have cancer, we have diabetes, we have malaria, AIDS is still there. All these other diseases are still there, and then we have another disease that's going to overshadow each of those previous tensions we've had in the health sector. And then you still want the government to stretch out and provide food for those who will have literally no food, no work, and nowhere to go.
The forum was quite timely as Kenya broke news of its first positive coronavirus case a day later. To contain the virus, the Kenyan government called for indefinite closure of schools and prohibited public and social life.
Some of the measures that we have taken today may cause
inconvenience, but I want to assure you that they are designated and designed to ensure that we effectively contain the spread of this deadly virus.
At a time like this, information from reliable sources is key as it can alleviate fears, educate, and create awareness on the situation at hand. Terry Wangari, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Following the outbreak of COVID-19, misinformation as well as fake news and myths have filled different mediums, causing more panic. In this next story, I followed a Kenyan journalist to discover how they're getting real and authentic information. The coronavirus outbreak has been accompanied by a tide of misinformation. Myths and fake news have flooded social media, causing panic. Well, today we meet a local Kenyan journalist to find out how traditional media is combating misinformation and separating fact from fiction. Let's go inside. Vera Okeo is a senior health and sciences reporter at the Nation Media Group. Being the biggest news house in East Africa, what happens here impacts the region.
So the role of the journalists in the coronavirus outbreak is basically journalists are supposed to educate, inform, but particularly in the middle of an outbreak, your work is supposed to kind of like, first of all, work with public health officials and assure people of their safety. I have a desk that is dedicated to science reporting. I don't worry about meeting any other deadlines except the coronavirus. Oh, so I have two stories. One is about like these emerging diseases, like COVID-19 is an emerging disease. It's like the scientific community is thinking about when are we going to be caught and where's next. Given in mind that UNEP says that every 4 months we discover 16, all over the world, 16 emerging pathogens, mostly viruses. So we just from the editorial meeting, my story got approved, and now I'm headed to Kenyatta National Hospital. I'm going to meet Dr. Marianne Moreithi, and she's going to talk to me about emerging and re-emerging pathogens, because she deals a lot with those things, and where COVID is an emerging pathogen, and I'm sure there must be others.
Meet Vera, the scientist.
I would like to know from you, in your opinion, even though there are still hypotheses, where do you think this virus came from? And also, in your opinion, what do you think you and your colleagues, the scientific community, may have missed that made this thing become as big as it is?
Where it came from is still under investigation. The hypothesis is it could have been circulating within the animals, wildlife, that could not have been detected or had not yet been detected, and that's where our tasks are very important, this virus hunting, looking for these pathogens, but we need to be more rapid in our detection, and after being very rapid in detecting and surveilling, reporting. So we need a whole chain of communication between governments, policy makers, scientists, you, who is very crucial in the clog of all this that's happening, so that we can be able to advise and warn.
Every time I try to cover a story, I have a strategy. I want to make sure that it is diverse in terms of the people I quote, and then research. That is my strong point as a reporter. I would rather you have too much information about a topic than have too little.
Despite her well-researched stories, Vera continues to battle skepticism.
So health reporters have had to, walk through global health governance, geopolitical issues, economic issues, international public debt. So you have to mix all that up and hope that by the end of the day, your reporting is going to bring science to the fore and all those other issues below it, and try to get people to, remove all those things that are clouding their judgment.
Vera's story appears in today's edition of the Daily Nation, and it will be seen by millions across the country. It's a reminder of just how important journalists are in the time of a pandemic, with the capacity to inform and promote changes in social behavior. Responsible reporting can save lives. In today's Voices of the People segment, we take to the streets to gauge how Africans are feeling about the pandemic.
To be honest, I'm not happy about it because I think we're going to lose a lot of lives here for people. So I'm not happy at all.
Okay, we fear about it because I don't know who is sitting next to me. I don't know whether he's having corona or what. I don't know how safety he is. So we are afraid of it, of sitting together in the matatu, because even the fresh air in the matatu, we are not getting.
So we mostly get most of the parts from China, but now, since the coronavirus affected them, they're also facing a very big problem because the factories are not working.
This is the second epidemic. The first was Ebola. Our government put in a lot of effort in containing it over the past 2 years. We hope our leaders will find effective solutions to end coronavirus, because we heard that it kills faster than other infectious diseases.
Well, that's all for today's special coverage. Africa battles COVID-19. Join us again tomorrow as we take a look at how COVID-19 is impacting Africa's transport sector. See you then. Back to you in studio.
Lindy Mtungana with the first of our feature series on how Africa is battling COVID-19. Do join us again for more of that feature series. For now, let's go to Rama Nyang for a look at the day's business news. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. MTN in South Africa has cut data costs to help people cope with working remotely. And we'll also take a look at a firm in Egypt which says its productivity has gone up as a result of having its people work from home.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa's largest mobile operator has cut its data costs in order to help thousands of people who've been told to work from home. Most countries affected by the coronavirus have implemented a range of safety measures, and they've asked all companies to allow their staff to work remotely. Now, MTN says it will cut its data prices by at least 50% to accommodate those that are setting up remote offices. Here's CGTN's Sumitra Naidu with this report.
MTN has amplified its monitoring of critical infrastructure to ensure there's enough network availability for all of its customers. It wants to ensure sufficient capacity to accommodate the increased work-from-home traffic.
We are working on new offers to make sure that whether you are a small businessman or you are a large enterprise or whether you are just a hustler on the corner, you actually get more. So we are making more our products more affordable. So in the coming weeks, we're going to be launching even more interventions. I think the president was very clear that those who can help, they need to step forward. So we are basically preferring to work with the state, to work with our partners, to work for our customers, and to even work with the regulators. The country needs more connectivity than ever if you are faced with a situation like we have today.
The mobile operator is also committed to support distance learning as schools remain closed. Access to some e-learning platforms are now free to use.
As we're faced with this unfortunate disease, I see an opportunity for us to be able to bridge the divide by making sure that we utilize these cheaper services in order to provide virtual offices to people at home. It doesn't matter if we have COVID-19 or not. Our people must still get access to their services.
In addition, MTN has zero-rated its USSD line for reporting possible COVID-19 infections and for other critical information. MTN has also set up 2 free COVID-19 channels for updated news and information.
This biggest drop is at the back of us betting on getting the spectrum, because the spectrum is the oxygen for this sector. From a capacity perspective, we'll run out of capacity. So you can't have a situation where you've got so much demand, not enough capacity, and then you basically compromise the quality of service. So we are confident that the minister, ICASA, operators, the government, in basically releasing the high demand spectrum for both the 4G and 5G.
Other private sector companies are also coming on board to assist during this time. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Over in East Africa, Uganda to be specific, telecoms operators also joining the fight against COVID-19. MTN Uganda has scrapped charges on all mobile money transactions. Now, the idea is to try and reduce the risk of spreading this pathogen through the use of cash. Transactions of up to $10 will not attract any charge. The mobile telecoms operators also introduced a special data package, they say, to allow its subscribers to work from home. Uganda confirmed its first COVID-19 case on Sunday, and now the country is taking all necessary measures in order to manage the impact of this disease.
One of the ways that the virus can potentially spread is by touching banknotes, touching the money going from one hand to the other has been identified as a major cause of transmitting the virus. So following examples from neighboring countries, we strongly feel that making P2P, person to person, you want to send money to another person, making it free of charge should help us in the fight against spreading the virus. Everybody in the corporate world will try to encourage their staff to work from home. You know, the social distance that we have been encouraged to respect can be easily achieved by encouraging working from home. So to that extent, we have launched a special data bundle. The volume is 1 GB. It's for 2,000 shilling only, 2,000 shilling for 1 GB of data, and you use it from 9 to 5. Why 9 to 5? Well, it's because those are the working hours.
Staying in the country, businesses in Uganda have started to get hit following the spread of COVID-19. One of the hardest hit sectors over there is transportation. And there's a good reason for that. You see, the most commonly used motorcycle taxis and truck drivers say they are incurring quite a few losses due to a partial lockdown in the country. The government has also shut down all open-air markets, church services and learning institutions to stop the spread of COVID-19 in the country. At the moment, Uganda has just one case, but it's taking steps to prevent a much wider and faster spread.
There are few people in town. That means the business has slowed down. We are not making money.
The closure of markets has affected us. We cannot transport the merchandise. We are making losses.
And a final story for you in this segment. The Egyptian government has reduced its workforce by nearly 50%, at least as far as office space is concerned. The private sector is also quickly shifting to a work-from-home policy. One company in Egypt is saying that productivity has surprisingly gone up after this order is implemented. More on that Egyptian work-from-home experience with CGTN's Adel El Marouki.
Rania Youssef is a human resources manager at a marketing agency. Her workplace is cozy, where peers used to sit closely to complete their tasks. But lately, she's been self-isolating herself as fears of COVID-19 grow.
I did not want to stay at home. We have wonderful workforce habits that we love. We have breakfast together every day. Staying at home is boring. Right now, we have nothing to do but work.
All her meetings with colleagues and clients are now online. But contrary to her expectations, she says their team's efficiency has increased.
We only have two options, either eat or work. No one wants to gain weight, so all what we do is keep ourselves busy with work. We are actually working more hours than we did in the company. Our office hours started at 10 in the morning. Now people check in at 9. Some of us work until 10:30 at night.
Like many of the millions of Egyptians who are now staying at home, Rania is not enjoying herself.
I am not happy with this lifestyle. I feel imprisoned. Even when we want to buy something, we order it at home and keep spraying disinfectants. The idea that you are always worried is tiring. I hope this crisis passes soon and life goes back to normal.
Rania's company has initially set 2 weeks for the work-from-home phase. Their company might extend if the risk of the viral infection persists. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And I'll leave it there for the time being. I'll be back at the top of the hour in global business. The World Bank is targeting Ethiopia and Afghanistan in its $1 billion fast-track package. A lot of economies are going to need help to get through this COVID-19 pandemic. What form of help exactly do they require? We'll take it to some frontier economies at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. Kenya faces a potential food crisis as locust swarms continue to destroy crops.
Join us in global business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Swarms of locusts in Kenya continue destroying crop, putting millions at risk of starvation. The insects have exploited favorable wet conditions after unusually heavy rains and invaded over 20 counties. Experts now warn that climate change may worsen the situation. Locust tells us more.
Chasing these locusts is an exercise in futility. The loud noises and movements startle them out of their hiding places, but they are hard to catch. The large swarms cast a shadow over the earth, rising and then quietly falling back to their hiding places as if they never left. This is the predicament that farmers in Kenya's western region are grappling with as the swarms move southwards. The Rift Valley is Kenya's food basket. It is largely responsible for feeding the nation. But even this relatively cool area has not been spared by the desert locust invasion. In Nyigon village, 65-year-old Ruth B. watched helplessly as the insects invaded her farm.
They slept in the trees the night they arrived. In the morning, they descended on our farms. We had to move our cattle down. Everything now is at a standstill. Since they came, we've had nothing but problems.
We are worried. In this area, we depend on maize farming to educate our children and for our livelihoods. If the locusts remain, we don't know what we'll do.
With their livelihoods threatened, everyone had to join hands to help chase the locusts away. But their efforts were a drop in a seemingly endless sea of locusts. A section of farmers in Uasin Gishu County say the desert locusts have not wreaked much havoc on their farms, but this is largely because many of them are yet to sow this year's crop, and as more swarms continue to arrive, they fear that next year's harvest could be in jeopardy.
As long as the locusts remain here, we won't plant our crops because we will suffer double losses. We'll lose the seeds we plant together with the year's harvest.
It is a state of affairs that scientists say is unusual but not entirely unexpected, as the locusts move in search of suitable areas to lay their eggs.
There was very good vegetation, very high relative humidity due to more than usual rains, and the locusts have been moving from northeastern Kenya. As the winds were pushing, they really ride on the winds to migrate. They change with the winds all the way to western Kenya, parts of eastern Uganda now. That's how the migration happened.
A desert locust swarm covering 1 square kilometer can eat the same amount of food in one day as 35,000 people. And this is why farmers heaved a sigh of relief when, a few days after they arrived in Uasin Gishu, the swarms migrated.
The same winds will now take these locusts as young adults, as swarms now to areas like Ethiopia, Eritrea, parts of Djibouti, South Sudan and Sudan. And they'll be finding a new crop because their cropping season starts in April. And that's now the danger, biggest danger in that area.
Government and non-governmental agencies have banded together to track the insects and spray them. Aerial spraying is considered the most effective control method, but it is a race against time as the insects continue to lay their eggs and multiply. Wilkis Anyabo, CGTN.
In Ethiopia, the demand for lemon, ginger and garlic has risen significantly since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. The 3 ingredients are a component of a traditional drink called dawa. It's believed to help boost the immune system and even cure colds. CGTN's Tulisha Balala has more.
This is Atikilt Terra Market in Addis Ababa. The demand and price for lemon, ginger and garlic have risen here since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. The 3 ingredients are used to make the traditional dawa drink.
For sure, this will help me. This is naturally rich in vitamin C and full of natural herbs like lemon, ginger, garlic and honey, and seasoning flavors in addition to these natural herbs. I often use it to recover from the flu, and by the same token, it will certainly help me fight corona as well.
Shoppers at this vegetable market fill their bags with these ingredients. Amid the fears of coronavirus, some customers are comfortable with the new prices, while some are not.
You know why they've hiked the price? It's after the outbreak of corona here. For example, garlic is nearly $5 per kilo. It is right here, you can check. It used to be just $1.80. Lemon was $1.50. Today I bought a kilo for close to $5.
A kilo of lemons costs $4. But I don't mind spending even more because it's for my health. Your health is more important than anything. I came here to buy lemon and garlic because the talk of the price is over-exaggerated in my area. But it's not that much. It's an okay price.
Sellers, however, say they are serving the public by providing produce needed for medical purposes.
You won't see a lemon seller now because they are being hunted and arrested because of hiking prices. But you shouldn't blame them because the wholesalers have increased the prices too. We are not bothered only about today. We also want to sustain our business in the future. We are trying to help the public because these are wanted for medicinal purposes. Look at me, for example. I'm protecting myself by inserting garlic in one side of my nose and ginger in the other. We didn't increase the price too much. It is just a bit.
Africa has now reported more than 1,000 cases of coronavirus. A growing number of African countries are increasing restrictive measures to try halt the spread of the virus. With a hot drink made from lemon, ginger and garlic, Ethiopians are just doing what they can to head off any flu symptoms. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. In sports, we meet the trio of Egyptian brothers aiming to leave their mark in France.